Good evening in London. Good evening, good afternoon, actually. Good afternoon in Galveston, in Texas. My name is Patrick Singh and help people document their greatness, help businesses document their greatness under the moment. And today, I'm very pleased to talk to one of the co-authors of Antonio T. Smith Jr. Changed Our Life. I am very pleased to be hosting this afternoon in Galveston and evening in London, Michelle Mueller, live from Galveston, and she'll be sharing her story on how Antonio Smith changed her life. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Oh, hello, Patrick. I am well. Thank you for asking and thank you for having me on here. I am excited to be here. I'm excited to share my story. I'm excited um, to help people just like you do. It's actually one of the things I love to do. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And it's been quite a while trying to connect with you from your busy schedule. And finally, we've been able to make this time to share this great story you have with our audience this evening. So, could you tell us who you are and what you do on a daily basis?
My name is Michelle Mueller. I am in Galveston, Texas. I am the CEO and founder of the One Red Shoe Foundation. That is a foundation that I created because, well, it came from my story. One Red Shoe actually came from a time in my story. And so what I do is I have a moped and I go out and I outreach. I outreach to women who live and work on the street. I outreach to homeless people who live on the street, panhandle, to people who are just trying to make it. I stop and I talk to everybody that wants to be talked to. Anybody who, if we make eye contact, I just ask them how they're doing today. And I try to bring a little kindness into their life. I leave notes. I actually do leave handwritten notes. I tape them to bus stops. I tack them to trees, shopping carts, bike handles, wherever I can, just to let somebody know that they're not alone, that they are worthy, and that somebody is thinking about them, even strangers. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, that's very amazing, and especially this time as we approach Christmas and end of the year, starting a new one. There are lots of people feel lonely, feel unloved, and that's the kind of work you're doing, bringing love to them, bringing the hope and the joy. How did you get into all this?
Because I once was one of those women. I was once, I have a bit of history of living on the street. I actually, when I was 13, I was in foster homes and group homes. I was a runaway. I was sexually abused and I became a runaway. I didn't want any help from anybody. I thought I didn't need any help. What had happened was when I turned 18, when you're a runaway, nobody comes looking for you when you're an adult anymore. So I decided to do what I thought was best and what was best for me. And when I couldn't run away physically, I turned to drugs. I turned to alcohol. I turned to a lifestyle is that was not for me. It wasn't for me, but I made it my own. I became a prostitute at the age of 20. And that was my lifestyle for 26 years. Um, I was a prostitute. I was a drug addict. I just was very self-destructive. I had low self-esteem. I had no self-worth. I knew what these women are going through because I was there. In whatever,
Mhm.
even a kind word, even if somebody was able to give me some hygiene, some baby wipes, anything that was let somebody know. But and nobody was there for me like that. I didn't see anybody do that. I don't know if I would have received the help, but I know that nobody approached me. So I try to make myself approachable wherever I go. I try to make myself be seen, letting people know, even if it's a smile, even if it's a wink at somebody, just to let somebody know that there are people out there that care. I stayed in that destructive behavior for so many years because I had no self worth. I had it. It was buried on top of low self esteem. It was buried on top of self hate. It was buried. I had shame. I had so much shame. I think it just oozed out of my pores because of I didn't like myself. I didn't like what I was doing, and I didn't know how to start. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what was the first thing to do to start liking myself, to start loving myself, to start trusting my decisions. So I try to make myself available because I know I've been there. I know exactly where these people are coming from. I know what they're thinking. I know how it feels to be lonely. I know how it feels to be hopeless. So that's why I do it because I was once there.
Wow. So on this other point that you met Antonio Smith, at the point where you had lost hope, at the point where you're almost giving up, at the point where you thought everything had come to an end and everything was repeating itself. So how did you come to, what did Antonio do to you, or how did you establish that connection with him?
I came to Galveston in 2011 to the women's shelter. I was beaten up pretty bad. But that was normal. I had woke up one day. I woke up one day and I decided I wanted to live. And that's how my story, that's how my company got its name, the One Red Shoe Foundation, because when I walked away from it all, I almost left because I couldn't find one shoe. I left with one shoe and everything I had in a backpack, and I came to Galveston, and I stayed at a shelter. I stayed at a women's shelter, and I did good. I got an apartment. I was working at a hotel. I was in the housekeeping department, so I was safe, but I wasn't okay. I was missing something in my life. And I was missing love. I was missing guidance. I was missing clarity. And I happened to be watching Antonio. He was teaching Bible study on Facebook. He was teaching and I wasn't raised in the church. I wasn't religious. I believed that there was a God. I just didn't believe he was mine. And what he
Mhm.
was saying I don't remember the exact scripture. I don't remember the exact Bible study, but I remember how I felt afterwards. I felt like I belonged in this world. Um, I felt like I was worthy. I felt like there's so much more out there, and I needed to know what it was. I needed to feel what it was. And I just got that off of one Bible study of Antonio Smith. He was Pastor Antonio. And then I started going to the church. And I kept getting full. I kept getting full of all these good feelings. And I asked him one day, I was like, I want more. I don't know what it is, but I want more. And he said, okay. And he invited me into he has a leadership program, a 40-week leadership program. Um, and that's where it started. We started reading books. He started having me read books about life, books about how to be a leader. And at first I was like, I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader. I've been a follower all my life. I've followed everything bad all my life. How can I be a leader? And that's what Antonio made me. He made me a leader. He taught me how to be a leader. He taught me just by his leadership class. And as the weeks progressed, the more I started opening up, the more I started realizing that I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty good person. I'm a real good person. I'm a lovable person. And I had an idea. I had an idea about my foundation. I even had a name for it. I wanted to reach the women on the street, and I didn't know how. And that's when Antonio invited me into his business system, his business university. He has it's called the ATS Business University, and actually even before that, I told him I want to talk to women. He's like, "You want to be a speaker?" And then he introduced me to Les Brown. So yeah, he introduced me to Les Brown, and it just started one thing happening, started after another thing, and it was just life became fun. Life didn't become, um, before I would wake up and dread the day. And now life was becoming fun. I was meeting Les Brown. I was actually beginning to feel comfortable talking about my story. I was being comfortable in who I was and who I was becoming. And so it started with his leadership class. It started with his leadership program. And from there, it's been big. It's been huge.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that's amazing, a very amazing, inspiring story, and seeing the journey that you've gone through to be where you are, the journey that you've gone through since you met Antonio, uh,
Yes.
the church, and then the
Yes.
discovery of rediscovery. You said you knew there was a God, but you didn't know that that God was your God. And then the leadership that you gotten involved in and how that shaped your thinking and your way of doing things. And as you're
Mhm.
talking as well, I was looking through your story, and you said you did one of the things that connected you to Antonio instantly was that you both had a common bond. And you said
Yes.
that both of us suffered sexual abuse. Both of us had been homeless for many years.
Yes.
And there was a big difference between you and him. And you said you had healed from your past, he had not. So
Right.
did he as well bring the healing into you? And how did that happen then?
Oh, how did it was a magical moment. It was magical because I had carried so much shame in me. I always felt dirty because of the things I've done, my profession I've done, the way I lived, the drugs, the alcohol. Um, I always felt dirty. And I had an event, and it was my first event for my One Red Shoe Foundation. And he stood up after I told my story, and he stood up and he prayed so beautifully. And I've never heard this before. He had said that I am now clean. I am a clean glass of water. And it actually, at that moment, it was a transformation for me. It was a moment for me because at that moment, I had forgiven myself. He had taught me that I am worth forgiveness. He had taught me about how Jesus had died for my forgiveness. And I
Mhm.
just had to let it go. I just had to let go of all that shame. I had to let go of all the hurt that I caused on myself. And it was at that moment was when I say, not only did Antonio Smith change my life, if it wasn't for, he saved my life because of that. He saved the quality of my life. I could have kept living. I could have kept living the same way that I was. I could have even kept living the same way that I was at that moment. But have self-forgiveness was, he changed the quality of my life.
Wow. So the aspect of forgiveness, the moment you forgave or started forgiving, all the heavy burden and all the load on you just disappeared.
It did. It disappeared. Um, but it's also a process. I had that moment. I had that aha moment, and then even though you have that aha moment, you have to do work. You have to get the tools. You have to learn how to, at every moment, walk in forgiveness. That's what Antonio, he taught me. You have to walk not only in forgiveness of yourself in every moment, but you have to walk in forgiveness of others at every moment. And for me, it's still a process. It's a process. He's given me the tools. His continuous and consistent and persistent training is what has got me where I am today. You can learn something and then you learn it and then you forget it. I had such bad habits of for so long. You can't change overnight. You can't change overnight. So with Antonio's, he's consistent. So following him is making me consistent in the way that I feel about myself, the way that I feel about other people, how I forgive other people, walking in a state of forgiveness with everybody. I think that's one of the most important things that he's ever taught me is not only do I deserve grace, but so does everybody else, and I have it to give. Why not give it?
Mhm, mhm. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michelle. Ladies
Mm.
and gentlemen, in case you've just joined us, talking to Michelle Mueller, live from Galveston in Texas, and she's sharing her story, which is published in this book, Antonio T. Smith Saved Our Lives. And Michelle here is saying that Antonio did not just change her life, Antonio saved her life. And you're
Yes.
looking at this moment when she started the practice of forgiveness or the process of forgiveness. And her story is titled Clarity. So, is that the moment or the moments of clarity or the process of clarity? Did it start with the moments of forgiveness or well before?
It started with the moment of forgiveness. It
Mhm.
started with the moment of forgiveness, but I get clarity every day. I am so fortunate to be in his physical presence. So listening to him talk and his teaching and his patience. Let me tell you, Antonio Smith he has patience. So yeah, that was the one moment with clarity, but continuing to work with him, continuing to follow him, continuing to listen to him. I get more and more clarity every day. And he lets me, one of the good things about Antonio is he lets me walk my journey and find things out by myself. He's
Mhm.
there. He doesn't tell me what's right or wrong. He lets me find out. He is a teacher that will teach you, but then let you discover it by yourself. And I get clarity every day. As every day goes on, I get more and more clarity of who I am, of who I want to be, and what is out there for me.
Wow. Thank you very much, Michelle. And also important, one of the things that you talk about in your story is that the aspect of gratefulness, of being grateful. Uh, can you shed more light on that? Because it seems to be a common theme in your story as well, how Antonio helped you to be grateful in life, grateful for what you have, and in relationship, how his life has been.
Yes, to be grateful. Even he during his leadership class, he actually has a awesome exercise that we do in another one of the books, and he teaches us about being grateful even for the.
Yes. Hello, ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen.
okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
He taught. Sorry about that. He taught me about being grateful for not just the good moments, to be grateful for the bad moments, because one thing that from my past, I was such a victim. And I didn't realize until after meeting Antonio that I had to go through what I went through to be able to be where I am today, to be able to have my purpose. I'm grateful for every moment. He's taught me to live in the moment, to stay in the moment, and just to allow things to happen. Just allow things to happen. Being grateful for the bad things that happened is I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. I wouldn't be trying to help somebody else realize the same.
Wow. And also that came with giving, the aspect of being able to give, giving your time, giving your energy, giving what you have, and helping others will realize the importance of giving. Like you are spending a lot of time with the One Red Shoe Foundation, giving. So how does that relate to your philosophy of life in terms of giving?
Oh, giving. Well, first of all, the more you give, the more you receive. The more love that you give, the more you receive. Um, through my teens, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, I always felt unloved. And that's because I didn't love myself and I didn't love anybody else. The more love that I give, the more I receive. It's simple.
Mhm.
It's simple. You just have to trust it. You just have to trust Antonio, because if you give more love, you receive more love. Whatever you give more of, you get back 10 times.
But how do you manage to make a step? Because it's very hard, because most of us will only give if we know we're going to get something in return. So just giving without, how do you know it's going to come back? How do you, is there any
How do I
guarantee?
know it's going to
How
come
do you,
back?
how do you build that hope that yes, it's going to happen to me and you'll get back even more than I gave?
When when I meet a young lady on the street, and when I give something to her, it's to look in her eyes, the thank yous, the tears, the relationship that I build with them, the that's enough. To
Mhm.
me, that's more than that's more. That's what it's all about. Just seeing the appreciation and the gratitude in somebody else's face, and the smile that they give me, the hugs, all that. That is to me, that makes it all worth it.
Mhm. And in that aspect as well, you encourage other people to give. So how
Yes,
can people get involved in what you do, like in One Red Shoe Foundation? How can people get involved to be able to give what they have or give their time or their skills? How can they get in touch with
they can get in touch with me at I'm at facebook.com/number 1 REDSHOE. My website is www.nosparewomen.com. I'm on LinkedIn at Michelle L. Mueller.
you?
And let's see, I'm here. There you go. I see you posted it. Yeah, and I just had an awesome donate. I just had an awesome fundraiser. I'm giving 100 red stockings to 100 homeless people on Christmas Day, and I'm overjoyed by the response I got. That I asked for help and people helped me, so they gave. So people out there, they want to give. They want to express they want to express love. So, and I'm here. I'm planning on going to the city and county jails and teaching workshops to the women on low self esteem, on worthiness, because we're all worthy. We're all worthy. We just don't recognize it. It's buried underneath a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm
So,
here.
thank you very much, Michelle. And ladies and gentlemen, in case you've just joined us, I'm talking to Michelle Mueller, right from Galveston in Texas, and she's sharing on her life, on how Antonio Smith changed her life. How Antonio Smith gave her not just changed her life, but saved her life. And from there, she's gone on to save other people's lives. And at the moment, she is fundraising uh, uh, for the her charity, One Red Shoe Foundation. And if you want to give so that these women who are on the street have something better for Christmas, increase their hope, then get link up to Michelle and she'll be able to uh, go through with you what you need to do to be able to help other people, to be able to save other lives out there that need your help. Thank you very much, Michelle, for sharing your
Thank
stories.
you.
Very inspiring
Thank
and heart
you.
touching. And we're very, very pleased that you've taken this time to share this story with the world. So just before we leave, in 1 minute, actually, I always say this in 1 minute, how would you sum your whole experience with Antonio and how he has changed and saved your life? That story, which is published in this book.
Oh my goodness, in 1 minute. Antonio Smith cares. I've never seen anybody else care so much about other people being successful. He is patient, he is kind, he knows what he wants. If you want to work, if you want to do the work, he will help you get there. He's a wonderful person. We are all connected. We are all connected, and he's teaching me how to connect the dots. and find the people who I need to be, who I need to inspire and be around. So, and he wants us to teach everything that we learn and share it with everybody else. He just wants to give it away.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And in case you'd like to include your story in the next edition of Antonio Smith's Genital Lives, feel free to get in touch with Antonio. Feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll be able to get you that story in our next edition of Antonio Smith's Genital Lives. Thank you very much for watching. It's been Patrick Singh from Greatness University, and I specialize in researching and documenting greatness in individuals, in organizations, and in different communities. And I've been interviewing or talking to Michelle about her story on how Antonia Smith changed her life. Thank you for watching, and thank you very much, and have a great day and evening. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very much,
you.
Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.